I think you have to set goals like we were just talking about, right? Like I think when you don't when you don't have a clear target, you can achieve everything in the world and you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be fulfilled. I mean, you can make all the money in the world, have all the success in the world. You know, I mean, you could do everything. You could have all of the fortune, all of the fame, all of the accolades, everything, and you'll never be fulfilled because you didn't have a target. You didn't know where you were going, right? It's like, you know, so you know, I mean, like that's something I've kind of made a mistake on before in my life. Probably like defining the goal, right? Short term, you know, day, week, month, and then like medium term, right? 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And then long term, you know, what are your goals? And then they're always going to change. So when you hit them or fall short of them or surpass them, then defining a new goal. But you got to have some sort of target, because it's like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and he's like, he was trying to get me to define like my fulfillment level in certain areas of my life. And there was a couple of areas where it was like, rate this area of your life on a scale of 1 to 10. But it's like, in order to do that, you have to know what would a 10 look like. Like, what would a 10 even be in a perfect world, right? In an ideal world, define, like, and it has to be your definition of a 10. Which is interesting, right? Because I was like, oh, I'm a 4 or a 5. And he's like, well, compared to what? So everything's compared to something, right? And I didn't have anything to compare it to. So naturally, I'm a 4 or 5 because I'm always going to be a 4 or 5. Because in my mind, I'm never going to be good enough. And I have nothing to compare it to. I have no standard. And the standard is always moving, right? Based on my emotions. So you don't want that. What you want is a standard that you set that isn't moving every 2 seconds. It can change, but you know, intentionally, you want it to change. So that's kind of my goal, or that's kind of the way that I do goal setting. Set a standard, set a goal, a target for you to hit in every area, right? Physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, in your relationship, right? Relationally, okay? Set a goal. What does it look like? In an ideal world, what would it be? And then go after each individual goal separately until you hit the standard or surpass it, and then set a new standard, set a new target. Keep on moving on. Target's always going to change. The goal's always going to change 100% of the time. But you know, if you just keep on moving, man.
And when it comes to execution, like the steps you're actually taking to move towards that goal, is that something you plan out religiously day by day, or is that kind of just something you trust in the process will happen and kind of just, you know, manifest that as you go and just get it done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, execution's a tough one, right? Because if you're a startup entrepreneur, you know, then I mean, it's not always, sometimes you don't know what exactly it is that you need to do. I mean, you know you need to be doing something, but you're like, okay, like you've got so much to do. It's like, what should I start with? Like, I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs fail, right? Is they get stuck in paralysis analysis. They don't know what to do. There's too much to do. It's like, what do I build that freaking funnel? Do I build the website? Do I write sales copy? Do I pick up the phone and sell? You know, do I hire? Do I fire? What, like, you know, there's all these different things you've got to do. But at some point, you've just got to execute, right? You got to say, okay, it isn't going to be perfect. I'm going to wake up today. It isn't going to be perfect. I'm not going to execute perfectly. But I've got to do something, right? I've got to take that first step to be able to see the next step. It's kind of like when you get into your car late at night, right? And you got your headlights on. Your headlights don't, let's just say you're going to drive from Arizona to California. Your headlights don't shine from here to California, right? Like, you got to get in, start your car, put in your maps, and then it's going to say, hey, get on the freeway, right? Like right now. And in 1.8 miles, you know, take the 10 west, right? It doesn't tell me what to do after that. It just tells me, hey, in 1.8 miles, do this. And then I got to have faith. I've got to trust that when I get there, it's going to say, hey, okay, now go 5 miles, right? Hang it right. So, you know, you've got to know that it's going to reveal itself as you go. The headlights, right? You drive your car, you take a turn. The headlights are typically shining 200, 300, 400, 500 feet in front of you. They ain't shining the whole distance. So you've got to trust as you go, it will reveal itself to you. You will know what you've got to do, but you've got to execute. I mean, you've got to be cool with error too, like making a mistake. A lot of people don't want to make a mistake. It's like, oh man, I got to have the perfect camera, the perfect audio, the perfect lighting, the perfect set, the perfect. That's great. And over time, you do want to get better and you do want to make progress. But man, I mean, if you ain't posting anything, a video of something's better than nothing. I mean, I would get a video with your freaking iPhone and post something. Right now, as you go and as you make progress and you make money, then sure, get. I didn't even want to say perfect, but make progress. You know, but yeah, execute. Just get out, execute. Now, I don't know what I'm doing every day, man. I still don't know what I'm doing every day. I mean, I know that my day will be full. I know that I'm gonna have stuff to do all day, but things happen, right? I had to move a meeting around to take this ATM right here in the back here to install it, you know, and I wasn't planning on doing that today, right? I was actually planning on having a conference call right now, so I had to move the conference call back, you know, get this ATM loaded up. Now we're driving. We're in the Prius, right? I had to switch cars because I drove my other car to the office today, so I had to switch cars. And here we are, right? It's not the end of the world. I got my conference call now when I get back, and we'll make it happen. But I am executing, right? I'm not waiting. Yeah.
When it comes to, you know, since you know you have to be doing something, but you don't know exactly what that is all the time. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with failure and roadblocks when it comes to maybe not getting something done the right way, or, you know, running into any issues or failure or mistakes? How do you deal with that, and how do you move forward from that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, you know, I think it's all about how you look at failure, right? You know, I think in school we were taught, right? If you're watching this video, we were taught, or listening to this audio, we were taught, you know, you can't fail, right? You can't fail the test. If you fail the test, you're a bad student. You go to detention, you get expelled, you get a D or an F on your report card, and ultimately you don't want that, right? Your parents are mad at you, your teachers are mad at you, the principal's mad at you. Go to college, the professor's mad at you. You know, you can't fail, right? We were taught that failure is a bad thing, okay? So our whole life we were preconditioned that failure is a bad thing, failure is a bad thing, failure is a bad thing, right? When you're a little kid and you make a mistake, you know, your parents correct you, right? They say, hey, don't do that, right? Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Your whole life you've been taught not to do certain things as if failure is a bad thing. And then we get older and we grow up, and all of a sudden you want to be an entrepreneur, a business owner, you want to make a lot of money, you want to make $1 million, you want to make 100 grand, you want to make whatever, start a business, right? And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, you got to have failure, right? Like failure now went from a bad thing to a necessary thing, okay? So, you know, it's really interesting, right? So you got to look at it differently. First and foremost, you got to say, okay, wait a minute, I have to have it. There is absolutely no avoiding failure. You're just not going to avoid it, right? So if you know you can't avoid it, then you've got to embrace it, right? You have to embrace it, because you've got to say, okay, I'm only going to grow and evolve outside of my comfort zone, meaning inside of my comfort zone, I ain't ever going to fail, right? Because I'm comfortable. Outside of my comfort zone, I'm going to fail all the time, which is why I'm uncomfortable. It's outside of my comfort zone, which is where the growth, the evolution happens, right? So you've got to embrace that, understand it's a part of the process, it's a part of the journey, and that life is happening for you and not to you, right? I think so many people, man, oh, the life's happening to me. You know, I got a flat tire, I lost my job, girlfriend broke up with me, boyfriend broke up with me. I was driving the other day with my buddy, and his Maserati broke down, and on the side of the freeway, actually, and we were laughing and joking about it, right? Because, you know, I got the camera, we got a thumbnail, and because I'm like, you know, the Maserati broke down. I'm like, but like, you know, and again, it just depends on what you believe in, God or the universe or whatever, it doesn't even matter. But I'm like, man, what if in a block or a mile right up there was an accident that would have happened? We would have just gotten into a major accident, and as a result of the car breaking down, that was happening for us and not to us, right? So now we just, in a split second, right, we changed our perspective. We looked at it a little bit differently, and we said, okay, wait a minute, that we don't know, by the way. You're never going to know, right? You're never going to know the alternative, right? So what you can do, though, is you can't control that. What you can control is the way that you look at it, the way that you think about it, right? So I said, look, man, maybe there was a crash. We'd have both been dead right now, right? But instead, God, the universe, however you want to look at it, prevented us from that happening, right? And boom, here we are, man. You know, so look at it differently, right? That one guy would consider that a failure. Another guy would consider that a learning lesson or a success or nothing at all, right? This is all about how you look at it. It's all about your perspective, but you've got to fail. I mean, you got to wake up in the morning and say, hey man, I want to have some shitty conversations today. You know, I want some people to hang up on me. I want some people to close the door in my face, right? If you don't have that attitude, you'll never succeed. You may as well go get a job. And I'm not being rude, right? I ain't being rude. Go get a job. There's nothing wrong with having a job, by the way. 9 to 5, there ain't nothing wrong with a 9 to 5. There's a lot of people that have to do it. A lot of people are gonna have to do it. Look, somebody's got to do it, right? If everybody in the world was an entrepreneur, who's gonna change oil in my Prius, okay? So, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But don't complain if you are an entrepreneur and you're going through all these roadblocks and setbacks and you're just complaining all the time. It's like, wait a minute, you're the one that signed up for it, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and when it comes to influence, who in your life has most influenced you in the past, influences you now, and where are you taking that, and who do you want to influence?
Yeah. That's a good question. I grew up, man. I think I grew up with my grandparents in my grandparents' garage. They're probably the most amazing people on the planet. But what's interesting about that is, they didn't make a lot of money, right? They weren't like super well off, like nothing like that. Very average, but I think that taught me a lot of what I didn't want to do in my life. I think I learned a lot of lessons that I didn't want to do. I said, hey, I don't want to raise a family like this. I looked at my mom, I looked at my dad. I didn't grow up with them really, but I said, I don't want to raise, if I'm ever going to have kids, if I'm ever going to have a family, I don't want my family to ever go through what I had to go through, right? Ever. So I think I was always running away from something. Everybody talks about having a why, right? I got a why because I want to retire my mom. I want to retire my dad. That's great, right? People have been talking about that for a century, okay? Have a why, okay? Which is great. If you're watching the video, it's great. You got to have a why. But that's just what you're running towards, okay? But if here's the problem with that. If I wake up and I really don't feel good, I'm really not fired up, man. I'm really, really like just out for the count for that day. Is what I'm chasing gonna be enough to keep me going that day? Or do I need to be running away from something, right? So you got to figure out, maybe you got to chase something and you got to run away from something, right? So I was always chasing the idea of, I wanted to give back. I wanted to speak on stages. I wanted to become a billionaire, right? I wanted to buy a yacht. I wanted to buy an airplane. I wanted to buy a helicopter. I wanted to do all these cool things. I wanted to travel the world, give back, donate to charity, blah, 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 give my all that stuff. So, but then I was also running away from the fact that I didn't want what I saw or what I grew up with, right? Which is what my grandparents gave. And again, they're the most amazing people on the planet, but it doesn't mean that I want to raise my family like that, right? So I think they inspired me, but in a very interesting way. And then I just think the people out there doing it, right? The Elon Musks of the world, the Logan Pauls, the Jake Pauls, right? The Bill Gates, right? The Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, Kevin Hart, these dudes, right? Kobe Bryant, these dudes that are just freaking animals, dude. Like, they're animals. Just to see that is possible. It's like, man, that is inspiring to me, to know that the human body, right? We can achieve that. So that's really big for me, But I'm just a hungry dude. Like, I'm just like, I wake up in the morning, it's like ingrained in you. It eventually becomes ingrained in you. So it's kind of ingrained in me now, And now I have a lot of different reasons, I guess, on why I do what I do, Eventually, you get a chip on your shoulder. You want to prove people wrong. You want to prove people right. You want to prove yourself right. Yeah, like it all kind of. And by the way, like, everybody's got their own reason. Don't discount. Look, in the beginning, I just wanted to make a lot of money. I'm gonna be real, right? I think a lot of people ain't talking about that. A lot of people are like, you gotta have a passion, and you gotta have a calling, and you gotta freaking, you gotta just like wake up and love what you do every day, and just trot on down the road in your little car and park and just cheerio and be all happy. And it's like, that isn't, for me at least, that was not my deal, right? You see all this stuff go viral on Instagram of, you just got to do what you're passionate about and the money will come. I don't believe in that. I think that's a bunch of bullshit. I think you've got to do, I think at the end of the day, sometimes you got to chase money, right? You got to pay the bills. You got to eat. You got to pay for your family to survive. You do what you're passionate about. You may not ever, it might not look too good, right? So for me, I wanted to make a lot of money. I got into real estate. It wasn't like I was addicted to real estate. I didn't say, oh my God, I love real estate. Like, I wake up every morning and this is just like what I'm so passionate about. No, I became passionate because I needed to make money, right? I needed to make money. So I became passionate. And, and then now there's other things that I'm passionate about. I learned the skill. Yeah. Long answer.
Is there any final thoughts you have for the viewers?
No, man, I mean, look, life's a journey, you know? Life is a journey. I think a lot of people, man, a lot of people are chasing the destination. And I've done it. I've been there. I know exactly what you're going through. If you're watching or listening, I understand. I've been there. So many times in my life, I couldn't even count them on all my fingers and toes, where I said, man, I know everybody in the world says money ain't gonna make you happy, but I tell you, if I could just make 100 grand, I'll be happy, right? And then I did that, and then it's like, if I could just make 200 grand, I'll be happy. If I could just make 300 grand, 400 grand, 500 grand, if I could just buy a Range Rover, if I could just buy a Mercedes, if I could just buy a Lamborghini, if I could just travel, right? If I could just go to Bali, if I could just go to Indonesia, Australia, Europe, London, Paris, Amsterdam, New York City, right? If I could just go to the Bahamas. Look, man, I've chased it. I've been there. If I could just have Louis Vuitton, Gucci, what you fill in the blank, right? Fill in the blank. If I could, then. If I then. Here's the problem with that. You're placing your happiness in the future. You're saying, hey, I'm not okay with the present, right? And you're living in the future. You're saying, I'll be happy when. And you will chase that your whole life. And what happens is the goal will always just be changing. Failing to realize that all of life is the journey. It doesn't matter if you have $1 billion in the bank account, somebody else has more money than you. There will always be somebody that has a better relationship, a hotter wife, a better looking husband, a faster car, more money in the bank. There will always, it's human nature. You will always want, and I get it. You're watching the video right now, you're like, yeah, but Austin, easy for you to say. No, I've said the same shit, I promise you. I said the same shit when my mentors told me all this shit. I said, no, you're crazy, easy for you to say. You're driving a Lambo, right? And then I got the Lambo, and it didn't change anything, right? So if you could just figure out a way to believe me and understand that it's all about the journey, dude, you all of a sudden everything changes, because you'll get right now you get present and you say, I'm here right now in the present. It is February whatever date, and it is sunny outside, it's cloudy outside. And all of a sudden you say, I choose to be happy right here, right now with what I have, and then you'll be able to achieve anything you want in the world, right? Anything's possible, but you got to stop. You got to stop waiting and start living and start being present in the moment, right? It's just a choice, man. It's a choice. It's a mindset. Stop waiting. Boom.